you get treated like an animal. It ain't right, but it's the way it is. A lot of people are real fond of telling me that. Oh, Sean, it ain't right, but it's just the way it is. It's just the way it is. Things will always be the same. Right? Yeah, whatever. That's only because you choose that. Things are always changing around you all the time. But you don't want them to change. You're stuck in your ways. You're stuck believing other people are less than you. A lot of you guys who are big and muscly got this idea in your head that little people mean less than you because you could break them in half on accident. You could beat them up, so it makes it okay to bully them, okay to belittle them. Those brains tend to look at those idiots and go, you know what? All that muscle doesn't do any good when you're standing up against Samuel Colt. By the way, that's actually been proven true. Colt revolver is the great equalizer. It don't matter if you're attacked by an 800-pound mountain gorilla or a 90-pound woman. Colt will stop whatever it is that's trying to hurt you. Well, so provided as your aim is on. There's a lot of stuff I needed to do, but all of it was dependent on having somebody else to help me with it. Didn't matter how much I paid, how hard I tried, how much I waited, it just didn't matter. Now with my disabilities, it ain't exactly easy for me to just up and do stuff every time somebody wants me to. A lot of people, they promise to help, and then I'll run into them later on and be like, well, why didn't you just do this? Why didn't you just do that? Well, if you'd have paid attention, I told you the reason I didn't do it the way you wanted it to. If I was able to do it myself, don't you think that I would, I don't know, do it myself? Don't you think I would try to save the money? And there's people like Jason Scudder. Jason Scudder did help me. He helped me to carry my stuff, refused to take my money too. It was actually helpful in that aspect, but when I had to go in and talk to people alone, he was going to go in with me. He went and sat off by himself away from it. That was I believe, my first visit to TCCHC. By the way, I'm not allowed to go back there because I told on them and they didn't like it. On the bright side, I also recorded the situations and conversations. They didn't like that either. Well, maybe they should have done their jobs as mandated reporters instead of trying to push it on to, oh, well, we're not going to do anything about reports of abuse against you. We only report about abuse that you might commit. Who cares if people are actually hurting you, Sean? We want to know if you have thought about hurting yourself or others. You know what? When my sister was telling me people were threatening to kill her and my niece, I thought about a lot of things. A lot of things. About 400 sessions with Chris Stegman out there at Chapel Lake. Listening to him talk about doing ungodly, horrible things. All popped into mind all at once. You know what popped into my head? I thought to myself, well, it's a good thing she's not Chris Stegman's sister. That's because when it all comes down to it, Chris Stegeman isn't going to do any of the stuff that he talks about doing. None of the stuff that he daydreams about or fantasizes about. He fantasizes about a lot of the most sick and twisted stuff I ever heard of. He and Lopez get along just fine as far as conversations go on that. But then there's people like me who have an allergic reaction to that kind of disgustingness. My physical abilities make it so that it's difficult for me to do most things day to day. It's hard to explain it to somebody who's too busy talking over you to hear anything you're saying anyway, isn't it? We need to introduce legislature that makes it so that doctors aren't allowed to badger disabled people. So they're not allowed to harm homeless people. You know how many homeless people go in to see a doctor? They get turned around, sent the other direction, and die shortly thereafter. That's what they do to poor people. Brian's real well motivated almost, but not really. The reason that I ran into him up there where they feed homeless people is because he's a homeless person. The lady that I spoke with up there, she should have taken it seriously. She should have understood that I'm having a communication difficulty because of the environment. But that I am, in fact, and indeed taking a lot of abuse from law enforcement and others. You want to pretend it's my fault for speaking up? Absolutely not. And when you're a part of the situation, no, you do not get to have your name left out of my mouth. That's not going to happen. There's a lot of other predators to expose, but primarily I got to expose what's going on here, where all of my money is going to, why it is that I'm jumping around from place to place, not having the resources. I mean, for me to sit down and write a report after a crime has happened, that's a matter of having a quiet room to sit down and write it down with. Other than that, I got to say it on YouTube and Facebook to make sure it's recorded. Then I can go back later and write it down when I get some peace and quiet. But you don't want to hear that. You can hear how a lot of people did mean well, but they were messed up on drugs. You can also hear how a lot of mandated reporters didn't do their jobs. That's where on-the-job training supersedes everything that they learned in mandated reporter training, because protecting the institution and their money is what's important. Meanwhile, my hair's messed up. It's unkept. I keep buying combs just so I can try to maintain enough to make it look like I'm trying to at least keep myself pretty for you people. When it comes to autism, there are a lot of autistic traits, and I have a lot of them. But some of you have it in your head that high functioning means that I don't need help. That's absolutely not the truth. You can see how my predators use stuff that is only present in low functioning autistic folks to try to pretend that I'm some sort of a violent monster, and must be, because autism makes us violent. Autism makes us socially retarded. Meanwhile, I'm not socially retarded. I was able to read your idiots' demeanors from day one, moment one. There's a difference between being gullible and being desperate. People who are desperate enough might go to the mob to try to get help if their kid's abducted and the police won't do anything. It's my little sister telling me that people were coming across state borders to threaten her and my niece. That shows that it should have been federal from the start. When I said I couldn't go anywhere in the nation and be safe from these people, from their judgment, from their opinions. Because one thing that was never important through any of it was the facts, the evidence. What mattered is people's opinions. It was thrown out to the media and let the wolves decide. It was a matter of popularity. And the predators who wanted to do these things to me were allowed to proceed, to continue, and have been allowed to proceed and continue to this day. That includes law enforcement nationwide. Law enforcement is not historically good to the homeless population. Much of the homeless population has to do drugs in order to not pay a bunch of money for camping tickets. That's right. Camping ticket will cost you an entire month's manual labor. Because you gotta do the court costs. You have to pay the fine. You also have to do the manual labor for the 13th Amendment. If you've been convicted of a crime, then you can be sentenced to manual labor. You can be sentenced to slave labor. You can be sentenced. They just call it something different. They call it community service. It's still slave labor. It's still immoral, especially when you will not allow homeless people an honest day in court. None of you are actually going to listen in a timely and efficient manner. There will always be some reason that you can't come through, but you're never going to come forward about why you can't come through. You're just going to let me be treated like I made you up, like you're a figment of my imagination. Doesn't matter how much of it's on my YouTube or my Facebook if I don't have help getting it into court. See, that's the nature of calling somebody mentally ill. Then magically it's okay for anybody to do anything they want whenever they want. To drag it out and make it take forever to even get an investigation started. To force a disabled person to do things that they're not capable of. And you get to see how when I go to these agencies, I'm bullied at them into doing what they want. Only what they want. Because none of them want to do anything about the mandated reporter stuff. That requires them to do some work. Whereas if they just sign me up for therapy, they get free money from the United States taxpayers. Meanwhile, it's not a free service for me. I have to pay what little money I have to run around to these services for help that they're not providing. Because they're too busy doing the therapist thing for cash. They don't care about the victims. And of course, rather than working with my disabilities, or allowing me to set it up so that I can utilize the materials that I need to get you the information you need. If you're not going to provide me with a room to do that in, and you want to do it over the phone, you got to do it in a timely and efficient manner, but you also have to do it and work with me so that I can go somewhere and sit down with my computer and have access to the information that you're going to be asking for, because there is a lot. With me having to do it over the phone, instead of you and me sitting down together and having access to the evidence right there, all that paperwork right there. Instead of doing it that way, how do these so-called professionals want to do it? They want to do it over the phone, and only when I don't have access to that stuff immediately in front of me. I explained to these people that I have to be able to go utilize my computer in peace and quiet. A lot of people tell me to go to the library, but I do go to the library. Just because I went to the library doesn't mean that people there have the ability to help how I need, and it doesn't mean that I'm going to be allowed the amount of time that I need in there. I do, however, need to run down there to Tillamook Sporting Goods parking lot. I want to try to avoid any complications. I don't know if Robert Farnsworth will show up with a praise Jesus attitude, or if he'll show up with one of those wanting to kill everybody things. But you get to see how I'm not allowed to have a reaction to any of these people. You get to see how many people react to the quote-unquote crazies out here. Like that guy who punched Jamie in the head there in the Dalles, Oregon. Claimed that she was his sister and that him punching her in the back of the head was magically okay because it's his sister and because not everybody's nuts out there. Or not everybody's mental out there. You notice how he shortened mentally ill to just mental, kind of like you do with the word retarded. Myself, as somebody who's autistic, I'm used to being treated like that, but most of us on the schoolyard are used to being treated like that, aren't we? How many of you have not been called that by somebody who just wanted to be mean? So, of course, he felt that punching her in the head because she was mental was okay. Punching his sister in the head was okay to this man. He's also recorded on my YouTube channel doing it. I also got yelled at by people for recording that, as if I'm some sort of an evil person for speaking up, for showing what it's really like. Y'all are harmful to us, and you have no remorse. And we have taught, especially women, to have no remorse. We have taught women how to hide behind just about everything from religion to their drug habits. That's right. When a woman does evil stuff because she's on drugs, we're supposed to feel sorry for her. And even though we're sober, if she wants to pretend like we're on drugs, then we're evil people and you're just going to pretend. You're just going to write it down because she said so must be true. Right? Wrong. Candace Bondurant should have done her job as a mandated reporter. Her boss should have done his job as a mandated reporter. The staff at the jail as well as the hospital in Boulder County, they both were full of people who should have done their jobs as mandated reporters. And then there was the public pretenders who did everything that they could not to defend me, not to do their jobs, not to requisition evidence, to set me up with appointments to go visit with investigators who literally 100% of the time did not show up. Then I had public pretenders who repeatedly did not show up. Were no-call, no-shows. People don't understand that when you are on a fixed income and you're disabled, all of these no-call, no-shows add up. All of the no-call, no-shows in the last 2 weeks while I've been down here, while my stuff is up in the mountains, while people say they're going to do this and they're going to do that. Some of them even use the words, I promise. And how many came through? None. None of them came through. On the bright side, at least Alexander helped me to get that stuff up there, but I don't want my stuff trapped up there in the mountains. I don't want to be stuck down here while it's possibly blowing around up there, making a big old mess out of the woods. That's not cool either. I actually care about the planet I live on. Sure, the other people I have to share it with aren't so great. And there's all these folks from foreign countries wanting to claim that they'll help. Well, are they actually going to, or are they going to talk about it and procrastinate like everyone else? That's what you do when it's a guy. You just blow him off. You promise that you're going to help him, but then when you don't keep your word, you blame it on him. A lot of people wanted to complain at me because my predators were going after them too. Wanted to blame me for it. Oh, Sean, it's your fault. It's your fault that other people harmed me. It's your fault, Sean, that other people threatened my kids. No, it ain't. Other people's actions are not my decisions. When these people chose to do bad stuff to you, that was their decision to do that bad stuff. not mine. And for you to harm me and to blame me for the crimes of others is wrong. It's immoral. It's like pretending that I must be a drug addict because my dad was a drug salesman and so is my mom. No, that was their decision, not mine. I've never tried cocaine and I never will. You guys want me to feel bad for the addicts, but only the good-looking female ones, right? Like Natalie Bollinger, strung out on heroin. I'm supposed to feel bad for her because she's a good-looking young heroin addict. Me and Natalie didn't lead much different lives, except that I spent a lot more time in the system. And I wasn't molested by my parents. My dad committed some acts that would definitely be considered immoral and illegal and sexual. But he didn't touch me sexually. And my mom, yeah, she could be considered a sexual predator. But not to me. A lot of people chose to do very immoral things without caring about the consequences for others. That includes Natalie Bollinger, not caring that people were harming me over rumors of things that were untrue. No, she didn't start the ones that were horrible. You get to see on her final public post how she had posted up. Stuck in the middle of the road here. What do you think I'm doing? Stuck in the middle of the road or something. I try to get around it. There's a lot of things that you guys just assume that I should be able to do because of my gender. Because I'm a male who is upright. I should magically be able to do everything that you want me to do. I should be able to work a full-time job and take care of all this other BS by myself. Most of the people who I knew before Natalie was killed wanted to tell me that they did everything by themselves. Here's the messed up part about it. I knew they were lying to me because each and every one of them I'd come through and rescued at some point or another. The problem is, all my friends before Natalie died had just blown me off every single time. Promised that they would help. Promised if I showed up they'd do this and they'd do that. But they never followed through. When I went to go see them and invested my money making sure they had cigarettes and food and all of that other crap. Was that good enough? No, it wasn't. They were still too busy chasing drugs, chasing sex, chasing food, chasing money. That's a big one right there, money. Y'all talk about how horrible it is they do these things to you or your friends, or they did it to some blah, 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 blah. Y'all got stories, but you ain't trying to turn it in. That's what I need help with. All these people who saw these things going on, that didn't come forward, that allowed me to be treated like I am a schizophrenic nut job, despite how much of it is actually up. Man, that's just a special kind of dumb. My morality is not based on your opinions. My morality is based on my set of moral values. Now, I understand on the streets there's stuff that you gotta let go. It's so trivial and nobody's gonna care. And if you tell on people for something so trivial, you're gonna get known as a rat, a snitch. Now, how about that? But there's things you don't do. You don't touch kids. I don't care if you're Jesus, a Nazarene. You don't touch kids. I get tired of people lying to me. You get to see how for over a year before Natalie was killed, I was hurrying up and waiting on people who promised that they'd help me. And then when I got there, I had to deal with some idiot or another. Hey, that's not cool. It's not cool to have me buy a whole bunch of stuff in order for you to help me, and then I get there and all you're doing is smoking pot, getting drunk, playing video games, or running around and getting drugs for somebody else. Man, I don't want nothing to do with y'all druggies. I needed help stopping abuse. Not that it matters. Once mandated reporters like therapists and caseworkers realize that, yeah, they can get in a lot of trouble, they start pushing for you to do all sorts of different stuff and telling you, you should have done this and you should have done that, and why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? What it all comes down to is, why didn't you listen? Why didn't you do your job as a mandated reporter? You notice everybody talks over me. That's how you can tell if people have any respect for you. Meanwhile, are any of these people speaking up? Or did I have to record them and post it on YouTube and Facebook to show that I told the truth about my predators? I told the truth about Kara Johnson Miles and Dan Faber and a lot of other people for that matter. I'm in a lot of pain. I am going to get out of my car. I'm going to try to walk around and pick up some cigarette butts. Y'all think it's okay to harm homeless people, to harass us. We must deserve it. We just need to let it go. The cops can know everybody that we're talking about. They'll still pretend that they don't. How many people here have told me they know these officers by name, and the officers know them by name? Then when I tell the officers, hey, this person and this person are witnesses, they said they would come forward. Oh, I don't know him. All right, are you sure about that? Because he had something different to say. It's one of the great things about recording so many people being like that. Is that you record both sides. Which one is lying? See, I have to make my decisions based upon the rights that I have, not the rights that you assume I have. I have to make my decisions based on the income that I have, not the income that you assume that I have. I have to make my decisions based on my physical abilities, not the physical abilities that you assume that I have. For me, being able to even stay on topic when people are driving by and revving up like that is very difficult. And of course, I'm hounded on and pounded on as if I'm able to power through all this. No. That's not how this works. You cannot cut a man's legs off and expect him to do the 100-yard high hurdles. 100-meter high hurdles. You can have that expectation, but that just makes you unrealistic. And that's why it is that I explain to people about my disabilities 1,000 times. Some people individual, I might have tried explaining it to 1,000 times or more. Like, hey, it doesn't work that way. Your wives' tales are definitely not doing us any favors. Assuming that you must be right because why? Why do you assume that you must be right? Why do you assume that you must be more right about my situation than me? Especially when you're not in my situation. What makes you think that I called you up for advice? I don't call any of you idiots up for advice because none of you look anything up. That makes it rather difficult. You're too busy blowing me off and telling me you're too busy. And then you post up about all the parties that you went to. You post up about your range time. Post up about a lot of extracurricular activities. You're allowed to have those. I don't have those. I'm stuck out here in survival mode, and it is nearly impossible to get anything else done when you're constantly worried about food, water, and shelter. Then there's the added issue of my evidence. I was railroaded in every single court date. But I also have the evidence that shows that I was railroaded. The evidence that shows that the officers lied. The evidence that shows that the Bollingers lied. Not that you care. You guys don't actually care about stopping child molesters or rapists. You care about talking about it. That's all you do is talk. A lot of people are talking about going and shooting some of my predators. Well, no, I'm not okay with that. That just makes them into martyrs. I don't want them to be made into martyrs. I want them in prison where they belong. This human trafficking thing isn't a joke. It's not a problem that's easily rectified. I get that. But it's not rectified at all if we do nothing at all. When it comes to going to mandated reporters and they want to send you everywhere there, no matter which mandated reporter it is, there's always some excuse that they're going to interrupt you while you're talking. They're not going to allow you to finish anything. If you start to give details, that's when they're going to talk over you. Because if they hear details, well, that's when they have to do something. You get to hear how mandated reporters want to continually change the subject over and over again. And they expect you to answer the questions that they're changing it to. They don't care about the reality of the situation. They don't care about the abuse that you're turning in. What they care about is the stuff that makes them money. If you say you want to hurt yourself or somebody else, or you've thought about hurting yourself or someone else, blam! Your life is over right there in that moment because you've got the mentally ill tag slung over your head. You're getting locked up, and now your predator gets away with it scot-free because you're called mentally ill. Congratulations, dummy. That's what you get for doing the right thing. That's what you get for being honest. Nobody who works for the United States government is honest. If they were honest, they wouldn't work for the United States government. Don't be a dummy, dummy.